this business here. Hello, welcome to Sonic Talk, episode 400. For goodness sake, it's 400. It's a milestone, or that's what they call it. I've got lots of facts about 400. This is the post-Messe one. It also happens to coincide. If you've been maybe not around for a week, you'll notice that we've had MusikMesse, which has been a very high-yield set of videos for a MusikMesse. A few facts and figures, episode 400. Basically, if you listen to every single episode of Sonic Talk, you could do 16 to 17 days straight with no sleep. Or 50 working days worth of podcast. If you start tomorrow, you'd be finished by the 3rd of July. That's Monday to Friday, 8 hours a day, you know, just sort of proper, so there'd be no kind of health and safety issues there. So, yes, if you fancy listening to them all, then be my guest. I mean, I know that many of you already have listened to some of them at least, so I want to say thank you very much for that. And also thank you to our sponsors. Currently, we're being sponsored by iZotope. More from them later. We have the winners of a competition to win AIRAs 2, and we've got another giveaway this week as well. So do stay tuned. Anyway, back to the here and now. I'm joined by a panel of guests who I think will have plenty to say on the subject of the just past MusikMesse, because there is really no agenda. It's just kind of, what do you think? What happened? You know, what did you like the look of? So we'll start. We've also got a double Marc week. I'm just going to do a flip. So we'll start with Marc 1, which I think is fair to say, being the first perhaps to join the podcast. Probably one of our earliest guests, actually, Marc, aren't you? Mr. Tinley, Marc Tinley?
I think I am. Yeah, I am.
I
can't believe it's 400. I seem to remember when it was like 40-something, maybe. That's when I joined, wasn't it? Somewhere.
Maybe, something like that.
Been doing it about 6 months, maybe, or maybe a year.
Yeah, that's quite possible. It's astonishing, isn't it? How time flies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Long enough to grow a new moustache.
Indeed.
How are you, Marc? Anyway,
this is my Magnum look.
Yeah, nice. How are you?
70s porn star, or someone suggested Ron Jeremy as well, although I'm not.
You're much better looking than Ron Jeremy.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know about the rest of you, but you know the moustache is probably of equal proportions.
When somebody said that, I actually Googled Ron Jeremy just to sort of look, and actually, when he was a young man, he was quite a sort of
quite a looker.
I don't know what he was. He was whatever he was.
Quite the dude. Yes.
He didn't look like he does now anyway.
No,
but it's kind of extraordinary that he's still doing that particular job. But anyway, how am I? I'm well. Yes, I'm well. Thank you. And I'm not Ron Jeremy.
No, let's maybe what we should do is kind of veer away from that wormhole and just kind of try and kind of steer it back towards music terror. But I feel it's only fair to say, so we'll start with there's Marc Tinley and there's Marc Doty. Marc Doty, of course, from Bob Moog Foundation, and also he's over there in the States, in Asheville, where he mans the archives of the Bob Moog Foundation. How have you been, Marc?
I've been very busy, but quite well, thank you.
That's good to hear. I feel much the same way. But anyway, glad to have you aboard. Of course, Marc is not only known as for his Bob Moog connections in the foundation, also Automatic Gainsayer, if you follow him on Twitter and check out his music, though I don't suppose he has quite as much time to do that. Also, a reviewer of synthesizers, much like myself. Well worth watching his stuff. I don't know what he's got in the pipeline. Perhaps he can tell us a little bit later. In the meantime, we'll go to Robbie Bronneman over there at Robot Studios. Robbie Bronneman, of course, producer, composer, studio owner, synthesist, musical director for Howard Jones when on the road, which I think is going to be quite a lot this year again. How are you, Robbie?
Very good, thanks. Yeah, I've been madly buying a duplicate rig because we're building a duplicate rig to leave in America permanently. So my house became like a bit of like a gear emporium the last week.
Wow, that sounds interesting. But what happens if you want to change it up? Does that mean you've got to fly to the States to modify it?
No, it's very elaborate. I'm getting all the kind of exotic stuff that I need to here, having the acrylic enclosures built here, and everything else we're sourcing in the States, and then flying in 3 days before the next tour and amassing it and putting it all together. So what could possibly go wrong?
And is that going to be your only rig when you get there? If it doesn't work,
Yeah, the other one's already flown back, you see, because we've got loads of summer festivals, and we're going to be in the States every month, in amongst the festivals season here. So yeah, that is it. Yeah,
that is so. I mean, that's like what the big, really big, the touring, the big U2 touring acts used to have an A and a B rig that would just leapfrog each other, wouldn't they? So the one would go on and get the setup, and then so you're kind of doing that. That's awesome.
but it costs $10,000 to ship it to America every time. It's just not really very sensible.
Jesus,
So,
no, fair enough. I mean, there's
Yeah.
really nothing more to say. Well, good luck with that. That sounds like quite a challenge. But you've done it once, so what could possibly go wrong?
It's just finding all the little things that the little annoying things, because they're all white, the rigs. But it's finding all the exact same cables in white, in the right lengths, and all that sort of business. So yeah, it's been a little bit of a mission.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, my alarm was going off on my phone loads there, so that was a bit distracting. Well, I wish you luck, and that sounds like a lot of fun. Gaz Williams, there in Bristol, gazwilliams.me, bass player, producer, music technologist. In fact, you'll be seeing more of him, hopefully, on our screens, as well as your appearance on the podcast. How have you been, Gaz?
Yeah, good, thank you. Getting all the festival bookings are starting to come in now, so the diary's filling up. I'm playing with an Afrobeat band called Matuki Doctors of Rhythm. There's I'll put a link in the chat room there, but so that's quite fun. So we're getting, but it's just there's a real thing that if you play as a session musician, there's this really difficult game of like when you take on some bookings, then other bookings come in, and then it's like trying to kind of stage manage so that they don't clash.
Can you be in multiple places at once? Yeah.
Which there has been some clashes already, so it's
You'll have to get them to provide you with a helicopter so you can just kind of wing your way about, or maybe an A and a B Gaz like Robbie's done, but nobody can replace you, Gaz. That's the only problem, I guess. Anyway, glad to have you aboard. As we all know, it's been MusikMesse. I mean, let's not. It's taken a chunk out. I'm sort of glad it's over, but I'm also glad we did it, because this year was quite a big year for us. We took an extra member of the team, extra two possibly members, and it all went very well. And we had new gear to work with. This was one of them. This was the Tascam DR70D, which we used as our audio thing. Which worked really nicely, actually. And then we also had a bunch of new mics, which were the Audio Technica System 10s. I'm not doing this to plug the stuff. I'm just explaining why maybe the audio sounded different, and why, as you'll know, Robbie, the idea when you kind of get there and you've got all this new kit to sort of integrate across 4 teams, you hope it's not going to be not all right. And it was all right, I think, anyway, as far as I can tell. So I want to say thanks to all the guys in the team. That's Rich Beach, Rob Hicks, Ed Butterworth, and, of course, Andy Mack, for just making it work, because that was awesome. But in the meantime, I know there's been quite a lot. This Messe was actually heralded as quite a big event, because there was obviously the Roland AIRA thing, which was the big, let's just assume, that was probably the biggest thing in the Messe world, because usually MusikMesse does not provide the launch platform for a large product. It's usually kind of you hear about it, then you go and see it at Messe, because maybe it wasn't quite finished at NAMM. But this time it was like bang, there we go. Although I can reveal now that we did get a chance to see a little bit of that going on at NAMM. Just couldn't talk about it, and so now I feel sort of it's great to be out from under the NDA. I hate that when that happens, but overall, I don't know what you actually thought, because I mean, I know, Robbie, you saw a little bit of this, so I don't know whether you've heard any more. But there's been various videos and all this sort of stuff coming in. In fact, I've got a load of videos kind of lined up that we can drop in if you've mentioned anything, because to be honest, the problem for me is I didn't shoot everything, so I don't know all of it. So I did shoot the AIRA stuff. What did you think when it came out? I think it was mission accomplished. They did a pretty good job of the launch, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I just have a good fuzzy tingly feeling about Roland coming back kind of now, to sort of, feeling a little bit kind of excited about products they're going to be releasing, because it just feels like we've said that, that they've got fresh blood in there, and they kind of listening to what people want. So I was quite into it all. Howard came straight on to me. He's out in LA at the moment. He came straight on to me saying, right, we're going to get 2 of these systems. We're going to have one each behind each of us, and we're going to do some live synth jams in the show. So he was certainly excited about it all. So, yeah.
And you
I think it's good.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I have yet to hear it fully, but just first impressions. I don't know about you, Mark. I mean, obviously, you know, you have an analog kind of persona to maintain, and obviously some of this stuff anyway is a digital kind of aspect. But the thing that interests me, I mean, aside from the System 500 modules, which is an interesting move because it's not purely a Roland thing, is these little digital modules that you can pop in and kind of almost tone print kind of extra functionality in it. That actually sounds quite interesting to me. I don't know what you think.
I'm inclined to agree. I mean, I have not jumped into Eurorack, although I'm getting pressure from several companies that want me to so I can demo their stuff. Unfortunately, not Roland yet. But yeah, I think one of the great things about Eurorack is the fact that Eurorack forces a great interface in the sense that you've got knobs and buttons controlling functions directly. And I think taking the digital aspect and putting it into the Eurorack context, I mean, I think it's wonderful. I think it's fantastic. And so it's all these new things coming out are really ruining my analog only like persona. It's kind of depressing. But yeah, I mean, I think it's fantastic.
Times move on. I mean, if we just I mean, this is the AIRA page. These are the modules we're talking about. Obviously, they've done the System 1M, which looks, I mean, the System 1, I think that probably the weakest part of it was the keyboard, and that's no longer there. So that's kind of, you don't have to worry about that really. I mean, although it is going to take up an enormous chunk in your Eurorack. And then, of course, we've got these modules. We've got the bit raiser, which is, I think, a bit reduction and sample rate sort of mangler. We've got the Demora, which is a delay, which looks very interesting to me. That's something that I'm very interested in. Scooper, which is kind of like the, what's it called, that thing? Scatter sort of, and then we got the Torcido, which again is more of a distortion. Oh, Gaz. I mean, that's not. You're not Gaz. There you are. The Gaz there. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are about that. But you're not deep into Eurorack yet, are you? But can you see a time coming?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, it's certainly interesting, and something that's been talked about a lot is this idea that a big player coming into the Eurorack world, which was really, I mean, you know, pretty small companies by the standards of Roland. So a big player like Roland coming into the Eurorack world is certainly a kind of benchmark in terms of Eurorack's ascension as like the premium modular format, I think would be fair to say. But and I also think it's very interesting that Roland are playing this kind of strange game of analog on digital, and of course in the JDXA, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon. Yeah. The marriage of both of those technologies. So it's an interesting time. I was talking to Robbie about the System 1M and just speculating about the location of the patch points being along the top. I'm wondering whether they would have been better along the bottom, because it's inevitably going to mean the spaghetti is going to dangle across the front. And
well, yes, that's true. But the
spaghetti the spaghetti is the thing that puts me off modules. I'm really sorry. I've had this absolute lifetime hatred of leads and the tingle-tangle chaos that my life is. And, you know, and to actually, you know, to bring that on with a module lust, I think, you know.
Yeah, you're not sure about that. No. Just also worth saying that all of this digital stuff is standalone desktop, so it will work, you know, out of a Eurorack module, so you don't have to necessarily. I think what they should probably do. Can you imagine if some bright spark introduces curly patch leads for Eurorack system? Can you imagine? That would be awesome. I don't know, Mark. What do you think? I mean, I know, you know, it definitely feels like there's more of a warm, fuzzy feeling for Roland, and to be honest, I think that's what they were trying trying to go. You know, this isn't probably going to be a massive money spinner for them, but it's about perception of the company, I think, because they were seen as not quite with it perhaps 18 months ago, and they've changed that very quickly, I think.
Yeah. So I think it's about perception of your own working practice. So I'm looking at this thing and I'm trying to visualize it in my workflow. And one of the things I particularly like doing is getting all my bits and pieces and kind of plugging them in and trying to make things happen between those bits and pieces that can't happen any other way. So it's like, and I've looked at, when the System 1 came out, I thought, yeah, that's kind of interesting. And then I had that whole argument about it being a future doorstop. Well, they appear to be addressing that and bringing out enough software along the way that it's starting to sort of look interesting with the SH101 emulator and the SH2 emulator. And then I'm thinking, well, they've got these plug outs. And then I discovered that plug outs are VST plugins as well. And actually, if I wanted to, I could run them as VST plugins and not even have a System 1 at all. So I'm sort of thinking, well, that makes that thing kind of redundant. So, but now where they've got clever is by having these breakout points in the box, which means you can run it in a computer or you can run it in the box. But when you run it in the box, you can do other things with it, and then breaking out to analog modules. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, that's kind of interesting. But then when I heard it on one of the videos, I was watching that and I saw I want the modular customizer, and I like the scooper, and I like what it was doing to the sound. It's kind of doing stuff that you couldn't do any other way, and not without more patching. So they've thought about where they're patching and how they're modulating things to create new sounds in a new way. So actually, I'm more impressed than I expected to be. I love it that they've made it so you can stick it in a Euro rack and you can use existing Euro rack power supply or power rail. You can just plug it into the Euro rack power supply. So they've embraced something that's already there that people are already building on. I think that they've only added to the whole Euro rack thing. So and then in terms, you know, if you go back to doors, I was looking at front doors the other day. Did you know a new front door is like about 700 quid?
Yeah,
so it's
very expensive.
Cheaper than a new front door. So I'm quite impressed by that. I know that's a bit random. So I don't know. Overall, I sort of I want to get my hands on one and the 4 modules underneath, and then maybe think about and maybe get that Tom Erb Euro rack thing and put that in there. The sound hack thing, the delay thing that he's made.
Yeah, and the thing about
I can see my bank balance being.
They're not. The thing is, they're not first to do digital. I mean, obviously, there's been loads of stuff. I mean, Harvestman have been doing digital for ages. There's lots of it around, you know, and there's lots of there's Tip Top and the Make Noise, and those people have been doing it.
They've integrated digital, plugins, and analog, and in a really clever way. And I know that the Mark of the Unicorn thing can integrate CV gate into your computer, but it doesn't just kind of pop into my mind as, oh yeah, I could sit down and just work through something and create sound with it. They've done it in a really clever way. They've looked at it and they've made they've integrated the most important parts in the simplest possible way. That's what I think, or that's what I perceive that they've done. I'd have to try it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we will have to try. The thing that's interesting about, you know, they're using the kind of TC Electronic tone print idea where you could run this app on your Mac, on your iOS tablet, and I think there's going to be an Android app as well that you could just design these additional modules. There are 6 slots around the basic representation of a single module in the customize zone. And I don't know, depending on the DSP required, how they work. I'm not entirely sure about that. I don't know if anybody knows more about it, but I got the sort of lowdown. But Avaya wasn't, the chap I spoke to didn't have the final details on it. And that's the thing that's interesting, whether those things can interact, and the fact that you can then just squirt it in. You know, because essentially what you could do is have like a looper or some kind of little sample memory where you recorded the sound output from these modules and fired them from the sound from your other Eurorack module that was a sampler into the preset. You know, you could have those depending on how long they load. You could load different modules kind of on the fly through sequence triggers and all sorts. I mean, it just starts to kind of spiral into this crazy sense.
Yeah, but
of possibility.
that's where it gets creative and where it becomes inspiring rather than just loading up a version of Logic and having a whole load of plugins in there, and sort of that's nice, but sometimes you want to get your hands on stuff, and if they've got the knobs right, and I don't know, it just I can see myself using it, and I can't see myself using a lot of things because it's invariably too complicated to plug something in, and I just don't ever get round to it. And I make music on a laptop because it's easier. But I think there's an element of it being inspiring enough that I think it would grab my kind of attention enough that I would want to.
I've just had it in the chat room.
Kneel on the studio floor and mess around with it. You know?
Andy Keys says you have to press, who I think might be AK Synth Jam, have to press a button to load a new patch on the mobile. But anyway, I don't know. There's all sorts of possibilities there, and I think that's the interesting thing. And obviously, we've also got the System 500 mode. I don't know how you feel about that, Mark, because I mean that's Moleko Heavy Industries. That guy makes a lot of modules for other manufacturers as well, in terms of just getting the industrial kind of manufacture part of other people's design. So he seems like a perfect, what a cool guy as well. I don't know if you ever met him, Josh. He's just like really, I could just imagine him standing in the boardroom at high level at Japan, Roland, Japan, trying to kind of convince them this, and looking just really scary to the inscrutable Japanese kind of top of all of the stuff. He had some great stories that I couldn't publish, but I don't know how you feel about that. That's going to be quite interesting.
I mean, maybe.
Hold on.
Oh, you're talking to the other Mark.
Yes, sorry. Mark 1.
Right, okay.
No, your video was he was fantastic in your video, and it was really an interesting story and so unlikely. And I've been hearing stories from people who know Roland super well saying they're just not interested in moving backward. They're a company that's moving forward, and they're going to continue to move forward. And of course, I was like, okay, well then I probably have nothing to say about Roland anymore, which is sad because my first synthesizer was a Juno 106. But when I saw, everyone, including you, Nick, started posting all this stuff about how, Roland's getting into modules, I was like, yeah, it's going to be just normal, But then when I saw that it was these remakes, I couldn't believe it. I mean, that's totally insane. And now I'm interested because it's like, okay, they did a wise thing. They didn't go backwards. They kind of stepped along with what's happening and brought their own heritage in there. Yeah. I think that's really wise, and I'm excited. I really want to demo those things because they sound, from what I've heard, great.
Well, one thing that Josh did say, and I don't know whether this was in the interview, but I remember him saying it, is the fact that they didn't want him to copy it exactly. They wanted him to take it and make modifications, because that would then be okay with the kind of company philosophy, and it wouldn't kind of cause problems with the sort of we have to modify rather than just completely re-release. I don't know about you, Robbie, but people say that the System 100 and the System 700, if they make any 700 oscillators and filters, really sound fantastic, and the stability of those oscillators and all those things are quite interesting. And also, each of them has like 6 modulation inputs on fate. I mean, just the amount of the stuff that you can do with them is really quite interesting.
I thought going back to what we're saying about the System 500 modules, it's interesting that Roland partnered up with somebody, because I don't ever remember them ever doing that, ever kind of working with somebody, with outside people really. So that again is another real shift in the company of kind of being part of the community, as opposed to saying, "Ta-da! Here's our latest product. We think you're going to like it." But we haven't actually kind of assessed if you like it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's good, because like you say, he's great. He's a great guy, and he makes some great products already. So that will already give really kind of a lot of confidence to people about the quality of those new modules.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought it was interesting though that the effects ones, is it like 3 different ranges, because they don't really look stylistically like the System 1M. And obviously they don't look like the 500 stuff. So is this like, are they running like 3 kind of parallels?
Yes, it does look like it in terms of looks, doesn't it? So yeah, the design is slightly confused, but I'm guessing that's for a purpose. I mean, I don't know whether that is the case or not. But yes, that'll be, and I'm sure there are going to be more coming. I mean, Josh wouldn't tell me, but I mean, I can't imagine you start that and then don't see it through. So that'll be
like I said to Gaz, if you're worried about the patch points being at the top, just put it in the bottom. next row down in your Euro rack.
Put it upside down. Maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Turn it upside down.
So, I mean, but talking about the whole integration with the community, this brings us on to the JDXA, because the JDXA also came out, and this was trailed at NAMM, and the JDXA is kind of billed, I think, as the next kind of flagship synthesizer. It's not, but that's also got CVIO on it as well, because it's got 4 analog voices. It's got the Supernatural sound engine, which I know digital seems a dirty word, but the Supernatural sound engine actually sounds pretty damn good. You know, certainly in the JDXi, it sounded good, and that's lower spec, certainly in terms of the amount of DSP. Although I was quite confused, I must admit, when they announced that the JDXi has 64 voices, but the JDXi has 128, yet is 4 times the cost. That's the thing that was kind of confusing me. I don't know. I don't know what you sort of thought about that. I mean, it wasn't perhaps the finest demo of all times, but I'll come on to that perhaps later.
It's a shame, isn't it? The demo was just, here's this really great instrument. Now, for me, that's much more interesting than all the other Roland releases for me personally, because I see this as this new frontier that I'm really quite excited about. This marriage of analog and digital in such a way of, utilizing the best of both worlds. I feel I might have had a tiny influence in the creation of this, because I went to a meeting with the Roland guys a couple of years ago, and along with a few others, and we were really pushing this idea at them, and they were being quite adamant that they weren't going to go this way. So it's quite interesting that they've chosen to do this. So I think that they have bowed to a certain amount of public pressure. But a very, very interesting synthesizer in many ways. The Supernatural engine, which was something that Roland invested an awful lot of money and time into developing, it features in this. But the fact that you can route it through the analog filter, suddenly you think, oh, that's a lovely coming together of those technologies. I know some people are maybe not so enamored with it only being a 4-voice, Robbie.
Yeah,
but
6 would have made more sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But that's to discount just how great the Supernatural stuff is. So if you get into sound design I think the scope of the sound design on that thing is just enormous. I think that's a really interesting thing. For me, the big thing it's missed out on though is they should have put polyphonic aftertouch on the board. And I know we're going to probably talk about MDE later, right? Or certainly I hope we do in this episode. But, other than that, I think it's a great thing. And it's interesting as a Roland product. You've got the combined typical Roland pitch and mod, sprung stick that I know
plus
some people
2 wheels,
like. Plus 2 wheels. So again, that sounds like they've done their market research there, because some people just couldn't get on with that Roland thing, but some people could, but they put the wheels on as well. And I think once you start to build patches up, and because you can have all sorts of cross mod going on between the analog and digital world, and blimey, that is really exciting. And no leads either. Yay!
Well, if you're going to use the CV, you're going to get it. I know. Because I mean, Howard is famously, been a sort of user of the flagship Roland synthesizers. Is this something that he's also thinking would have a place, in his compositional? I mean, was he as excited? I suppose is obviously I don't want you to put words in his mouth or anything, but I'm just curious.
I'm not sure. He's very much. I mean, certainly for live now. I mean, I don't think we'll ever go back to having hardware synths, apart from perhaps, like we say, adding something in that's for a specific reason in the show, because we're just so geared up with main stage and everything, and it's just phenomenal what we can do with it. So on that aspect, I think that it's kind of a little bit of a moot point for us to ever think about going back to having synths again, really. But certainly for the new, we're already talking about a new album, and he just likes instruments that are inspiring to play. He doesn't really matter whether it's digital, whether it's analog. He's not snobbish. It's just if it excites him and makes him want to write songs, then he's all for it. So
sure,
and I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's so easy to just go, oh, it's digital, it's crap or whatever. I mean, it's just, there isn't really a right or a wrong with any of this stuff. It's just finding instruments that inspire and fit into our workflow, like Marc already said.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, I'm interested to look at it. I mean, you know, I'm definitely, I'm not. It's not what I'm particularly looking for. I'm after a full blown analog poly. So I'm the most.
Well, it's funny you should say that. Maybe we'll come on to that. Well, after this short message from our sponsors, perhaps we'll talk about that. So obviously, we want to say thank you to our sponsors. iZotope, who have been with the show for a long time, and we have the competition winner to announce after this. If I press the there we go. Of course, we're talking about Iris 2 from iZotope. 11GB sample library comes along with this, but it's also a massive software synthesizer engine in its own right. We've got turn that up a little bit. Multi-mode master filter, masses of modulation potential. You can see the animations there. We've got 5 LFOs, 5 envelopes, plus 8 macros as well. The flexible modulation system that is, and not only that, we've got the spectral analysis and the spectral selection tools that you get with the previous Iris 2 and also RX technology. And there's loads of really nice actual analog waveforms in here that do sort of seem to come to life in this instrument. I must admit, when I've been playing with it, I do think it sounds very beefy. So if you want to check out the iZotope Iris 2, then you need to go to izotope.com/iris, and there's a 10-day demo. It doesn't come with all the samples, but you can play around with it and drop your own in there as well and get a flavour for it and see if it's for you. So once again, we thank them for their sponsorship of the show, and please do check them out. And of course, as I think it would have been 398, because we did a sort of Sonic Talk special with Isotonic Studios. Try talking about iZotope and Isotonic in the same paragraph. It's a nightmare, I tell you. Anyway, we have a winner from last week. We asked you, or last show, we asked them to tweet out win Iris 2, quite simply. And the winner for of Iris 2 is a chap called FMod, at FMod. And he tweeted hashtag win Iris2 to iZotope Inc. and iSonic State, and he won. So if he gets in touch with us, then we will be able to direct the iZotope ferry to fly over his house and drop the code down the chimney, where it will mysteriously end up in his email inbox, and he can then download it and enjoy Iris 2. But we've also got another competition for this week. Again, Iris 2, and I figured it would be a good idea to actually have a celebration of the fact that it's Sonic Talk 400. So this week I want you to tweet the hashtag Sonic Talk 400. That's Sonic Talk, one word, 400 in letters, no spaces, to at Sonic State and at iZotope Inc. And then we'll pick the winner from the entries via the massively convoluted but highly scientific random.org number generator, and another site which allows me to search for all the tweets. So anyway, I want to say thank you very much to iZotope. To enter the competition, remember, if you're listening in audio, you need to be on Twitter. You need to tweet the hashtag Sonic Talk 400. That's Sonic Talk with 400 on the end, at Sonic State and at iZotope Inc. And obviously there's 140 characters, so you can easily add something witty or entertaining or abusive or whatever you like in those extra 400 characters. We do watch it and we do monitor it, so thank you very much for their sponsorship. So yes,
I think you should have whoever posts tweet number 400 should win.
Wow, we don't always get 400 tweets.
No, I know, but this is a ploy to have people tweet more. They could enter loads of times, and then
that is a good idea. You can that's right. Well, that's actually not a bad idea. You could enter as many times as you like in the 400th tweet. If we don't get to 400, we'll go back to the original method. Yeah,
generator.
There, good call, Mark. So
you missed me out on the JDX.
I'm terribly sorry.
Which is my only question would be whether or not it plays PCM waveforms, because if it mixes analog with PCM, I want it to be like a bit like a V-Synth and a bit like a JD800, but with the Jupiter 8 inside it. So if it's like that, I want to try one. I
don't think that it's going to fulfill those particular set of criteria, I'm afraid. I am sorry, but
does it play back PCM waveforms, and can you put your own PCM waveforms in it?
You can't, as far as I can tell. So
that's where all these things fall down. For me, it's always, I want to take the sampling world and glue it into the analog world and to do wonderful things with it. And that's
you need Iris 2, Mark. That's the way.
I know. Yeah.
So, Nick. Yes, Mark.
I know it's unlikely to hear me talk about the JDXA, although I do think it's really pretty. I'm talking to Matt Berry also right now. And he had Matt Berry, like Matt Berry.
The voice. Yes.
He actually wasn't that impressed with the JDXA. He actually got to demo it a while ago, and he said that the writing was too small, and that the analog was put through digital effects, and you couldn't undo that. And he says that the knobs on the Roland were tiny, and it wasn't obvious where the frequency cutoff knob was, which he says is unforgivable. So there's kind of an alternate take on the JDXA.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, I did have similar misgivings with the XI. I couldn't read the stuff in certain lights. So, I mean, maybe, although there was more backlight going on, I think, in the XA, so that might come up with that. But I did want to come back to this because we did sort of trail the fact that there's also the Modal Electronics, who used to be Modulus. They went crazy this NAMM. I mean, we had the 002, which is a digital oscillator analog architecture, massive, expensive polysynth. But they sort of topped it even more now. There's 008, which is true analog voice with their sort of control system laid on the top of it. And there is a sort of history to this. But people got absolutely total. I think I got a text from you, Robbie, saying I've got to get one of those in capital letters while I was in the show. So I didn't get time to respond. But that's right. That looked kind of interesting.
That's the most important. Yeah, I'm very excited about that synth.
Has it replaced your lust for the Prophet 6?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm on the fence now because I was ready to push the button on that, and I just want one great polysynth that's reliable and got a great a really good sound to it. And I do like the idea of this synth because it kind of, for me, is the best of both worlds. Knowing the background and the pedigree of where it's coming from, it's not been slapped together quickly in terms of the voicing, of the actual analog side of it. But you get all that great engineering of their instruments and the kind of forward-thinking operating system and all that kind of stuff. So it has got me, very excited.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I heard it in the flesh. I mean, obviously, it's very hard to tell in that environment. I think I did manage to get some relatively clean audio from it at the show, but it seemed to really pique people's interest. It's not going to be cheap. It's going to have to be more expensive than the 00, the 002.
€4, something like that.
I don't know what the cost is. They haven't fixed it. They haven't told me what it's going to be. But because it's got a lot more analog electronics in it, it's just going to be more expensive to make. But, there's room in the world for some things that some people can't afford. That's just the way it goes. I mean, I did that whole thing with the Schmidt where I had a nice 20-minute tour with that. And that was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. But then, they're making 28 of them. So it's one of those aspirational things. I think that the 008, presumably they're making a lot more of those. But there's no reason why people shouldn't just because, my daughter can't afford it. It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how you feel about that, Mark. It's it's good to see somebody do it, just going for it and going, yep, we'll sell some, we'll make it.
I was just actually talking about this today about how like price really defines whether a synthesizer is going to be particularly marketable, because like people complain about the size of the keys on the Korg Odyssey, and I always say, well, if they had the bigger keys, less people would be able to afford it, and it wouldn't like benefit the market to the point where they'll make more in different types of like analog revival synths. So I mean, it's certainly the price, having something that is out of the reach of the average person or the average consumer is I think it's kind of a dangerous thing. But then again, if it's got all the features that the people who've got the cash,
yeah. That's okay. Yeah. But to be fair, they did also announce a 002 rack, which is way, way cheaper than the 002 synthesizer. It's going to be like 1,500 quid or something like that. And they also announced the 001, which is a 2-voice synthesizer. Which
confusing.
Again, is going to be, I think the naming is slightly confusing. But
totally got wrong, shouldn't it? Should have been. Anyway.
But anyway. And that looks, so that technology is trickling down. I know, Gaz, you want to come in there probably. So you are muted, sir.
Rich Hilton special.
Yeah.
The pricing of the 001 is £13.50 UK pounds.
That's actually pretty reasonable, isn't it?
And
it's a
so that's very cool. So the 008 is, I know quite a bit about this because I've a little bit of background on it. I'm not sure how much I can say about it, but there is another person who has kind of joined forces with Modal and has brought along their design, which they've been working on for many years. That is so clever. And you might have noticed that there's this multi-mode filter on the 008, and that's part of this particular person's design, which is it 16 modes? And it's like,
yeah,
and
lots of filters.
But also the way that the way that you can modulate things is just so nice and so straightforward. You know, you literally turn the knob, turn the I think you hold something down and turn what you want to send the LFO to, and you can essentially modulate every parameter. I think there's no limit, or there's
right. So lots of routing possibilities.
Loads of routing. It's just it's phenomenal. But also it's really great to see the implementation of the sequencer on there. They've really looked at this whole buzz about this growing complexity of the analog style sequencer, and they've really put out a super implementation of that on it too. So
yeah, it does look nice.
It does look nice. But I mean, so I think the fact that the 001 at 1350, which is putting it much more in the same ballpark as maybe the sub 37.
Yeah, I mean, the people in the chat room are saying it's expensive, but actually the sub 37 is not far off that, and it's actually paraphonic, whereas the 001 has two voices, full voices, not a paraphonic version.
The Dominion's a similar price, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the Dominion I think absolutely rocks, as you know. So, but it's paraphonic, not polyphonic, I suppose. So there is a difference. But
again, it's just very exciting and welcome, isn't it, that we're seeing this happen? And I'm really, really proud of Modal as well, because they are based here in Bristol.
That's right.
So it's like, hooray!
And they've done this in kind of 18 months, which is astonishing, really.
Oh, well, they've done it in 18 months, but like Gaz says, some of the background of some of the stuff they've kind of amalgamated into certainly the 008's been going on for a lot longer than that, I think. So, yeah.
Yes, that's very true. I know. Yeah. I think it's exciting. I mean, I'm sorry, Mark. We're getting excited because basically, I can't think of many other British synthesizer manufacturers who are doing sort of true. I mean, obviously we've got Novation are doing it and mass produced, but they're still, the Base Station 2 is as far as they've gone in terms of analog voices. So this is kind of quite thrilling. And again, they're just down the road, so we're hoping to get a look at this stuff pretty sharpish. And the build quality of the actual units is really, it's nice and solid. The 001, which is the two, this is really confusing, which is the two voice. Is you could end up making a very expensive mistake there if you weren't quite sure what you were ordering online, but yeah, it's good stuff, I think, overall. I know, Mark. I mean, does any of that stuff? I mean, does any of that stuff excite you? I mean, the interesting thing about the 002 rack as well is it's got full editing capabilities. It's got a built-in web server, so basically it's an HTML and really quite responsive design. So you could just edit it from some sort of tablet or whatever. So you don't get all the knobs, but you get
from
access
anywhere.
Yeah, pretty much. So you probably do it from somewhere else in the country or even the world if you plug it into your router.
That sounds like an interesting concept, doesn't it?
Could be.
I can't think of anything clever to say. So.
Well, that's all right. You don't have to. I mean, that's fine. But I mean, I think the thing is, it's quite exciting that this is going on, and I know that they probably got a lot more up their sleeve, but they're going to be bringing out 3 products this year, so that was cool.
And there's an effects board coming, isn't there? Isn't it worth saying there's an effects board and digital output coming for all that will be implemented for all of them?
That's right. So you have onboard effects and I think probably USB streaming and that kind of stuff going on. So I guess we're coming on to the kind of any other highlights from Messe for anybody. I mean, I know, some of you probably been following our coverage. We've done, I don't know, we're up to about 80 videos now. So, okay, well, let's start with you then, Mark. Have you got any highlights that you've seen from the show that you kind of would like to think, you know what? I
want to make friends. I want to make friends with that man in the pink shirt and the beard at Synaptic, because that Morph 2 thing looks absolutely bloody amazing, and I really want to. Well, I don't want to end up trying it for 10 days and then go, wow, that was really amazing, and I'm not sure that I want to buy that I want them to give it to me.
Well, there's nothing like a bit of begging. Shameless begging. But the point
Well,
is,
you know.
I'll tell you what, because
you know what? I've been for years and years and years. I've been looking at this system called capybara,
yeah,
which is a really powerful kind of morphing system, and it's like I don't know, $8,000 or something.
I don't know it's that much, but it's expensive.
Outside the price range that I'd want to pay just to make those kind of sounds. And this, from the demo, in the video that you did, maybe it's these new blue headphones, but it just sounded really good. And the kind of the transitions from one sound to another sound sounded completely believable. And when he put the cymbal on the voice, it sounded like a cymbal talking. And when he put the dog on a voice, it sounded like a dog.
That was terrifying.
I
asked him whether all of his demos were so horrible. Yeah. I mean, because they really, bear in mind, I'm there with a pair of headphones on listening to it, and I'm going,
oh, seriously impressive. Really... But that for me is like my favorite creative area. So I'd like to get hold of it and then try creating, real-time synths that go through and morph things and do things. And I don't know. I mean, just morphing reverbs onto distortions and just also I've got so many ideas for it that I don't think 10 days would be enough. And I'm not sure that I would. I might buy it. I might have to buy it, mightn't I?
That is fair enough. I mean, I think the thing that really impressed me about that demo specifically was when he just got two mixes and morphed between them. I was like, wait a minute, what's going on there? That is, I think, let's see if I can find it here because I've got.
No, that is. When I hear something that's really going to do something, I don't know. I'm not going to claim to be psychic or anything, but. In terms of, when something excites me enough, it's usually a good sign. So all the hairs on the back of my neck went up on end, and I was like, "Wow, I've never I like to hear things I've never heard before, and I've never heard anything like that before." And I was just like, "Whoa,
yeah, no, that was
wait
cool.
a minute."
Okay, well, that's I think that's a fair point.
So,
mean, we did talk about it really previously. Good. So, okay, Mark. In terms of what you heard coming out of Messe, what was it for you that kind of, maybe outside of the Roland kind of thing? What did you? What was there anything? Oh, I mean, well, no,
there was other stuff.
Yeah,
other than the
apparently so.
Thing? No, actually, I actually haven't seen a whole lot of what was actually new there, and certainly, when things are software based or digital, I'm less inclined to focus in on it. I did see, I think that I saw a Make Noise video about their Telharmonic module.
Yeah.
Really good.
That was there. And I know Tony, and we live right in the same town. I run into him all the time. But his modules they frighten me, it's weird to say, but they seem very complex to me personally, which is weird. And I'm always hoping at some point I'll learn them. But I watched that demo, and it was just every single noise that came out of that module, I was like, I want that. I want to be able to do that. I love that. It's it just had everything it made. All the sounds it made were synthesizer sounds that sounded like really excellent analog synthesizer sounds that I wish I could be making, which is cool because I'm kind of obsessed with additive synthesis, and there are some additive aspects employed in that module, and I just was really, really excited about it.
So, are you going over to the West Coast then, Mark? It sounds like if you're getting into additive, right?
Well. Actually, no. It started off on the East Coast, with Thaddeus Cahill in 1906. So I could say I'm still sticking East Coast with this.
Okay. I like your style. Robbie, how about you?
Yeah. Well, I too really like that module because I'm a big Make Noise fan. I'm just looking now. I've got 8 modules in my Euro rack here of them. But I've had all the panels changed, as you know, because I can't bear all the scrawly writing. Anyway, but no, what I really liked from the show is nothing particularly. It's just a great idea thinking out of the box. There's a British company called Pop Audio brought out this great pop shield, popaudio.co.uk. It's just a great idea. Somebody's reinvented the idea of the pop shield. You've got 3 different pop shields that just pop onto this universal arm, so you can have a metal grill, a foam grill, or a, and they just snap on and off straight away easily.
They
I
use
just
those.
thought that was such an elegant idea, because quite often one isn't right for a certain singer, and you end up farting around with all different ones. So for 55 quid, I thought that was a bloody good idea.
I like that. A bit of innovation. There we go. Shipping summer
Simple.
2015. Yeah. Well, we like a bit of simplicity. It's always easy to forget that sometimes the simple ideas are the best. Okay, Gaz, I'm ready for you. I think we're ready for you now.
Right.
Just go and get a drink.
What? Boss SY300 looks ace. It's a guitar pedal, but it's a synth, guitar synth, polyphonic, and with no pickup needed.
Yeah, it just goes down the jack, which is that's the really big sell. I think it was again one of those situations where the demonstration didn't really kind of give us.
Alex Hutchins,
he's a great guitarist.
He's a great guitarist.
Is that because it doesn't work very well?
No, it does. It does work.
No, it does.
Are you sure?
Good, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very good because it's using a new engine and it's not sort of slave to MIDI. So it has got MIDI functionality, of course, but it is able to do a whole load of. It's almost like an evolution of the GR pitch.
Yeah.
To pitch to digital, and then a whole bunch of interesting stuff. So I mean, like in the demos, Alex, he's an incredible guitar player, but he says himself, he's just coming to terms with things like LFOs, and so I think it's going to be an interesting product for them to market, because guitarists are scared of synthesizer terminology, and this thing just sort of like revels in that. So
it did look quite complicated to program. There's lots of sort of sequences in it, but the fact that you plug your jack plug into it is actually quite a big deal. But what was really interesting about also all these kind of usages of momentary switching and modulation and what have you, I think the problem was with that is, again, it probably, if you put it in the hands of a synthesist like maybe you or you, Gaz, that kind of, who's kind of spreads crosses the divide, then we might see some more interesting things. I think, but I think it could be interesting technology.
Really
definitely.
Keen to get my hands on one of those. Yeah. So I mentioned earlier MDE, and I think this is going to be a bit of a buzzword this year. This is that extension to MIDI that the guys at Rolley were pushing with their Equator synth. This is a multi-dimensional expression, which is kind of important in terms of we're seeing these products like the Harken Continuum and the Linstrument, of course, and Eigenharp and various other ones, which allows for single notes to be able to have multiple realms of expression without having to use them.
Is that like the VST note expression kind of principle? Is it the same sort of thing?
Yeah,
right.
It's a similar thing. Ordinarily we'd have had to use up many MIDI channels per note to achieve a similar thing, but being able to have it on a single channel and have this multiple expression, I think is really exciting. And I should mention just something I noticed yesterday, the Parva synth, something which this is the desktop synthesizer that we've looked at before. It wasn't at MusikMesse, but there was something quite interesting that has reached its funding target on Kickstarter now, which is excellent news. But one of the things that they've announced as a kind of reward for hitting that is that it's going to support MDE. So you can imagine there a Linstrument and a Parva 8-voice analog.
Yeah,
very nice. Using, and again, as I was mentioning earlier, this is where I'm really excited. It's about these emerging technologies coming together, and the
trying to forming a standard. I mean, that's what we need in a lot of these instances.
A standard. Yeah. So then I mentioned briefly then about the Rolley Seaboard. So I think quite notably that they had the, I'm not sure when it was announced, but the 37 key version of the Seaboard, which was around a similar price, I think, to the Modal 001, around the 1300, 1400.
It's got a sound engine in it as well now. So
it has a sound engine in it, and it runs this Equator synthesizer, which really is about exploring this MDE. Now, the control surface of the Seaboard is certainly going to be an acquired taste, and is not going to be a big mainstream product, I don't think, but as a product to explore this multi-dimension.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
Expression, I think is I think that's a very good example. I mean, the Linstrument again is another good one. We've talked about this for years through Sonic Talk as well, that the iPad and being able to do lots of expression on the touchscreen was very good, but still not maybe missing.
Nothing was listening.
Yeah, it's missing a tactile element. So these products that are coming out, which do give you a tactile and a certain amount of feedback in your fingertips, once you're actually feeling the control of analog synthesizers through that sort of thing, it's like, oh, yes, please, yes, please. So the other thing I should mention, I was very disappointed to see the lack of USB hosting. I did a little blog before the show saying I really hope to see, USB hosting becoming the new thing, that every synth and every digital product that comes out now shove a USB host in it, because that just makes a lot of sense for me, especially as we're seeing, much to my consternation and anger, the DIN plugs starting to disappear. So at least if they are putting the host ports in, so we can plug these kind of USB products.
Well, and also, frankly, if it's got an audio interface, you can shove your iPad in it and just feed the audio from whatever it is, because there are some great instruments in that realm as well. But yes, I take your point. Yeah,
absolutely. And this, I think, should be just,
mandatory.
Standard.
Should be mandatory.
Mandatory.
If you make a synthesizer in, we should maybe use NATO as an umbrella organisation. All the countries that are members of NATO that manufacture synthesizers, there should be a bilateral agreement that means that if they make one, they have to put a USB host mode. Otherwise, they will be kicked out of the organisation.
Yes.
I think you're right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We could use, Mark, we could use music for good, Mr. Doty, couldn't we? We could use it for world change and peace, and USB for world peace or something.
Are you trying to get me to agree to put a piece of computer in my analog synthesizers?
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Gaz, come on.
Yeah, go on. Put it in.
It could be. I don't know. I'll tell you one thing that really comes straight out. There's also, Andy Keys in the chat room mentioned patch blocks, and they look really interesting as well. These little USB programmable DSPs that you can throw all kinds of stuff into and just make modules out of. That takes it a little bit further again, past little bits and that side of thing, but more complicated. So you've got a method of programming. They look really interesting and they're very affordable. I mean, I'm going to have tomorrow we're going to have a chat with Ed, who covered a lot of the modular stuff, and also Rich, the guitar side of things, just to sort of round up from those two editors to see what they made of the show from their point of view. So that'll be another Sonic Talk special. But I tell you, the one thing that really struck me, and that felt like guitars at Messe were completely plateaued. There was very little going on in that whole area, apart from perhaps this SY300, which arguably is more of a synth product. It just felt like there was really nothing to see, and I'm sure that's unfair, and there may, hopefully that won't be the case. But
guitarists are boring, aren't they? They are boring. They're stuck in 1973.
Come on.
And bass players, by the same token, I suppose.
No, they're not. They're not. The bass players are much more adventurous.
Bugger off. Oh, I'm not allowed to say.
Right. Okay. Well, but I mean, this led me to another interesting fact, because the other thing that I felt, and I think, we've mentioned this a couple of times. A couple of the products we've talked about just felt a little bit under-demonstrated, and that's not necessarily the fault of the demonstrator. It's maybe more to the point whereas the manufacturers are not seeing that to demonstrate their products in a different way with people who are perhaps using them in more musically relevant ways will connect much more strongly with the buying audience. Because, I mean, we had an office just outside the plaza, and every day for 8 hours there was somebody noodling in a kind of half-arsed blues fashion all day.
Lovely.
All day, all the time. And you just thought, this kind of was the soundtrack to Messe.
Well,
wherever you kind of went. And there wasn't much, because we've got some exciting things happening in Guitar World. You've got is it Royal Blood and those kind of things who are just kind of going, just making really sort of visceral.
Bass player, that's why.
So, well, I suppose, that's a fair point. But there's very little of that reflected in musical demonstrations, generally speaking. And I think that's true across keyboards as well. And I think that's a problem that the industry is going to have to deal with, a way to make these things more compelling, because they're clearly able to do these amazing things. And what I think perhaps one of the problems that you get with that is the demonstrator gets it 2 days before they have to go to the show, and they can't necessarily do it the best justice. And I think that's a problem. I know, Robbie, I wanted to ask you about this because when we first met, you were demonstrating for TC Electronics, so you've been that guy effectively.
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of get your what's that working in that
piss
environment?
everybody else off at those shows.
Sorry,
I used to piss everybody else off because I was pumping out all these electronic things. I remember the first year I did one of those shows, I was actually opposite this very exclusive modular synthesizer company. It was a company who was selling modulars way before it all became like really fashionable again. And they used to just look at me like the devil every day when I turned everything on. And started
oh no, he's here again. So you were one of those guys that everybody walks past the whole time going, like me, going, oh God, I'm glad I don't have a booth next to them. Wouldn't that?
Yeah, no, it was quality. It was quality.
Of course it was. Of course it was. But I mean, in terms of what you actually get, you get the thing. I mean, how much time do you get to prepare for those things? Because sometimes you get very little time, do you? And it's just, I mean, and I know you're a preparation, fiend.
No, I did. I used to do a lot of work with that, and companies like TC, they'd get me the products, quite a while before. So I would make sure that I wasn't people, turning up with a product I knew nothing about. So I think it's really embarrassing when people just kind of go, I've been given this half an hour before the show kind of thing.
It's difficult, and that's where it takes, I know, Mark, Marc Doty takes a special kind of demonstrator to be able to kind of find something in there that they can make it. I mean, whenever I'm, that's clear. I try and say that, I say, well, look, I know you've only had this for like 24 hours, so we're not expecting you to know it inside out. But what are the high? I mean, have you found? I mean, because you review stuff, do you ever get those kind of reviews when they go, yeah, we can send it to you tomorrow, we need it back the next day, kind of stuff?
That kind of happened when I got the Arturia mini broods. Like they needed it back as quick as possible, and I had to shoot those demos so quickly. But I'm lucky because with most analog synthesizers, I can just dive right into it. If that had been, say, like the Pro 2, I mean, I'm embarrassed to say how long it took me to really, really grasp the Pro 2. So yeah, I've been lucky so far, but yeah,
it's tricky. I think there just needs to be, I mean, in some ways the media are to blame and the market is to blame, because it's like, we've got this big event, we have to hit that deadline, we're aiming for it, you might miss it, and there's something there. I mean, I think we saw that at NAMM with the Timberwolf, which was was just awful, for everybody concerned, because it just didn't do any favors, and it didn't come across well, and it wasn't finished, and it just sounded wrong, and it probably can sound better than that, but that happens across the board in many ways. I think perhaps with guitar products it's easier. I don't know, Mark. Have you ever had to do any demo stuff for products?
Me?
Yeah.
What about that synth I tried to review?
Well, that was a review rather than a demo, I think. But
oh God, and that was so complex. You know what? I mean, in terms of those review things, this goes for like all presenters in general. There's this whole expectation that presenters are going to be very excited about everything and really on it and overexcited and exuberant and full of life and all this sort of stuff, or they're not going to be interesting to watch. And so people, I don't know, when when you're trying to present something, you've got that in the back of your mind as well, like, oh God, I don't want this to be too flat and too boring. But sometimes presenting the information is the most important thing, isn't it? So, and I mean, yes, I've reviewed things and done things in the past, and
but usually you get a bit more time. I mean, I think what I was.
I mean, even with that thing I was reviewing, what was that thing called? I can't remember. The analog keys. That was so complicated. I had that weeks beforehand, and I couldn't make head nor tail of it, even with the manual.
Yeah, well, sometimes it does take a while to find a route through these things. I agree. I mean, I know that Marc Doty was the same with the Pro 2. It takes a while to grasp them. But on the same note, the biggest. What do you think the biggest video of the show was for us? Just out of from what you might have seen. I mean, I know Mark, you probably haven't seen all of them, but from a gut reaction, what do you think was the biggest thing that we shot that perhaps was big? I know, Gaz. You can take a guess first.
Overbridge.
That's interesting. Overbridge was quite big. Actually, that's also worth talking about at some point. But it wasn't that. No.
Okay.
Robbie, any ideas?
Oh, I'm stuck on that.
It's interesting instinctively. I know. Marc, I'll ask you anyway.
I don't know. I'm going to go with.
All right, I'll have that, Marc,
probably
sorry.
the wrong. Okay.
No, so you carry on, Marc.
I'll carry on. It's got to be the Roland thing because people were talking about it beforehand. Yeah, expectation. People were curious as to what it was, so they would have gone and watched it to see. I could cheat, couldn't I, and look at your YouTube channel?
You could. It would take you a while to go through all 80 videos, though. And they no longer display the numbers on the playlist, so you have to go into each video.
Okay, I'm just going to say one of the Roland things. It has to be one of the Roland things.
Okay, that's interesting. Have I asked everybody? Sorry, yes, I think I have.
Gaz.
Gaz, sorry. No, Marc. Did I ask you? I can't. Yes, no, I was asking you, and then yes, I've got the wrong Marc. That's right. Okay.
I think you know what I would have said. In my little universe, like I saw the links to the Roland modules just everywhere all the time, constantly. I was bombarded with it. So I would say that.
It's interesting. It was, in fact, none of those things. It was the demo I shot of a chap called Sebastian on the Arturia booth with the BeatStep Pro and the 8 Brutes.
Oh, the 8, yeah, that was a good demo.
That went absolutely massive. It was the big, not by far the biggest, but certainly the biggest view, and it's the most shared and the most, because it was, I think it was because it was unexpected, and because his joyous demonstration of the technology was exactly what I'm talking about. He just got into it and did it, and everybody just went, wow, that's brilliant. I want to be him. I want those things. I can't have them.
Was he exuberant and full of life, or was he?
No, not especially. He was just really into it.
On it.
Really into it.
Yeah, just genuinely inspired by it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that was that was very, very interesting. I suppose quickly we should probably say, I think that's going to be available. They're still not available. They're still working on it. The Roland AIRA stuff is going to be available in the summer, they think. I think the System 1M is it $499 or $599 US? And the AIRA modules are going to be $299, and then the System 500 modules I think are $299 also. I'm not sure when they're coming out. Dollars. These are dollar prices. Sorry, Robbie.
It's cheaper than I thought they'd be.
What, the modules?
Yeah. I thought they were going to be $399.
Yeah. Maybe I should check. You might be right.
That's good. I think that's really good pricing. You could get all 5 of those and have a full, really great little analog synth, couldn't you? Modular synth for not a lot of money.
Yeah, I think you could. Although you need a big case because obviously you're going to be using. I think it would probably just.
When it goes,
it's a row, isn't it? I'm talking about the System 500. That is essentially a whole synth, pretty much, isn't it?
Yes.
Everything you need.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's missing the mixer. That's the only thing that they haven't got. But yeah.
When it goes to market and they've made a few and sold a few, the price will come down by about a third, probably.
Not a modular stuff.
Might do.
Modular stuff never changes. It's like the Apple mark. Analog modular stuff. It just is everywhere's the same price. There's never deals on it ever.
Maybe they'll change that.
We didn't talk about Bastl, and they had an incredible show.
They rocked it.
The Czech Republic company Bastl, who prior to this, the last few weeks it seems, were mostly known for like their little micro granny. And actually, they've got a range very similar to the patch blocks, haven't they? They've got these little pins at the side so you can connect them up. But they had all these kind of wood-faced modules. And also, a whole bunch of cool-looking stuff. As did Dreadbox as well. Their Erebus and their little pedals that they were showing. Both of those companies, small European companies, producing some very desirable stuff.
Yes, definitely. And what was interesting about them is everybody in the modular world was talking about it. I mean, we should also say, basically, I think if you saw Peter Kern's Create Digital Music, he was giving out awards, and he absolutely got it bang on. The whole hub, effectively, I think the sort of epicenter of the energy around the entire show was the Schneiders Buro booth. And because there was honestly, the whole time, it was almost impossible to get through. There were tons of people there. There was a real buzz. There was all sorts of excitement. And I think that's possibly due to the Roland injecting it as well. But it felt like it was really the whole show kind of revolved, certainly Hall 5, 1 and 5, revolved around that little bit about that booth, and that was brilliant to see because he's a fantastic geezer. I mean, he's put so much energy into sort of championing the smaller boutique modular makers, who some of which are now are kind of starting to make a bit of cash and kind of expand and kind of get a bit more higher manufacturing amounts and stuff. And that was really, I hope he felt really kind of justified and rewarded, because I think that was awesome, and I think, if anyone deserves an achievement award, it's probably Andreas Schneider, because he's responsible for both sides of the Atlantic, really, because he comes to NAMM as well, and certainly this year did it, and one could say that there was a similar sort of vibe in the hall that he was in there as well, though it wasn't quite in such a central position, and that was really good to see, and I think that was excellent. So yeah, awesome stuff. I suppose we're probably getting towards the end of the show. I should say, obviously the Messe coverage was brought to you by our various sponsors, and that without them, we probably wouldn't have been able to do quite as much as we did before. So I want to say thank you to Universal Audio, Loop Masters, and Plug-in Boutique, Cakewalk, Klaviyo.
Yeah. How many times have we heard
that? Do you know that? Yeah, you know that, Chet.
A lot.
I think on reflection, it might have been better to choose something a bit more vanilla, but you certainly remember it. TC Electronic, iZotope, Ableton, Tip Top Audio, Nectar, Tascam, and Audio Technica for providing the hardware. So brilliant. That makes a big difference to us, and a small company enables us to do these more interesting things. And also Julia at MusikMesse, not that she's likely to watch this, just for looking after us as well. That was good. So I think that's kind of probably it for this show. I want to say thank you to everybody for joining us. It's been great fun. I know we had a lot to cover and it was a bit freeform, but thank you very much, everybody, for sticking in with us. I want to say, we'll say thanks to our sponsors first as well, obviously, of the show. iZotope, remember, you can win the iZotope Iris 2. Tweet the hashtag SonicTalk400, 400 numbers, to @SonicState and @iZotope Inc., and we will pick a winner based on it. But back to our current panel. Marc Tinley, thank you very much for joining us this week. Pleasure to have you and your facial topiary, which has given us a great source of enjoyment. Thank you very much, Marc. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
It will be probably immortalised in this podcast episode, because I'm sure by next week my partner will have forced me to shave it off.
So that's it.
Do it bit by bit, Marc.
She's already ordered the razors with the shopping, so I've,
there's no choice.
Take the middle out first. Take the middle out. Leave the two bits to the side.
Well, take this out. Leave that.
Just
take the middle out.
Take the bit under your nose out, so you've just got.
Don't leave the bit under your nose. Whatever you
don't do that.
No.
Leave the other bits.
Okay. Well, I was thinking about having the full-on wax thing.
Yeah, that looks pretty good. That's not a bad. That's not a bad.
It just grows quite slow though. So
I think you could pull that off, Marc. Definitely.
I should have mentioned the Jobo Music Flexion as well, as something that I thought looked really interesting.
I have absolutely no idea what that is.
I love the name.
Yeah, Jobo.
Okay, it was one of the synths that got reviewed. I watched the review for it, and it just sounds ever so slightly different to everything else. So so that interested me. You've got a review of it. It's a Swiss company, and it was just.
I think we went to see them because it was. Yes, this looks like it. Is this what it looks like?
Yes, exactly.
It's a software thing, right?
Oh yeah.
And I heard it and I went, hang on a minute, that's doing something different. It wasn't quite as hairs on the back of my neck as the Synaptic thing, but it's that's still.
Well, that's worth checking out. JoboMusic.com is where you want to see that. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I love it when these shows come along and somebody makes a leap, and a leap forward, not necessarily in technology, but a leap forward in the way things sound, or the way we create sounds, or the quality of things. So like the obvious things, so like the ADAT, when the ADAT came out, it was like, whoa, hang on a minute, you can do that now? Now that's, really clever. And the same with actually the modeling amps and stuff like that. So I'm always excited by leaps in technology, and the Synaptic one seems like a one of those sorts of leaps. They've done something. And this Jobo thing as well, it just sounded like a leap in the right direction for a slightly
I will have to
different
check it out.
sound.
That was one I didn't film, so I'm not aware of it. And that's the thing with all these videos and me having to do what I have to do as well. I don't get to see everything. But anyway, thank you very much, Marc Tinley.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
And we'll just do a quick juxtaposition there. Which Marc is it? Oh, okay. Marc Doty, also, thank you very much for joining us. You can find him at the Bonmo Foundation and, check what he does online, Automatic Gainsay. Thank you for joining us, Marc. Oh, what's that?
Leipzig.
Is that a Leipzig? How are you getting on with that?
Yeah.
I've heard good things about that.
It's terrifying. It's one of those things I'm glad wasn't handed to me and had to do demo, because it's like, well, sure, it's got all the oscillators and filters, easy. But the routing is so interesting in it, and it's so complex, and yeah, I'm really excited about it.
So you're going to be posting. Have you posted on it yet? I saw you.
No, it'll be a while because there's a lot going into the videos. But yeah, this is the next thing coming, and I'm really excited about it.
Excellent. Well, we'll look forward to that, and that will be available on your Automatic Gainsay YouTube channel?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Well, we'll check that out. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us, Marc. And
thanks for having me again.
I did see Michelle at the show and said hi and said thanks and said all of those things. So thank her again for allowing you to take time out of your busy working day to join us. And you're welcome as ever. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
And, of course, Gaz Williams over there in Bristol, thank you also for joining us and also for keeping abreast of what was going on. I think you've probably seen more stuff than I have at Messe because you've seen the stuff that I didn't shoot as well. But thank you very much for joining us too.
Oh, my pleasure. And, congratulations on all that wonderful coverage, though. I mean, it's not easy to do. And I thought that, you did a terrific job, you and the team, obviously. And I thought that, because I know you were using a new system for making their audio, being able to separate the audio, and I think that was really good. It was great to hear some of those things kind of up close and personal. So yeah, congratulations on that.
No problem. Thank you very much, Gaz. And also Robbie Bronneman over there, thank you very much for joining us too. It's been a pleasure to have you and your insight also.
No problem. It was fun as always.
Good stuff. Right, so before we go, just a reminder, we're going to do a little a Messe special like we did of NAMM with both Richard Beach and Ed Butterworth, who covered guitars and modular stuff. So we'll have a sort of more tightly focused thing on the stuff that they saw too. And of course, we'll be back next week. I think next week, if everybody can make it, we're going to take a look at sort of group review of the Blue MoFi headphones. So if you want to hear what we all think about them, check that out. In fact, I didn't. Yes, of course. There's Gaz is wearing a pair, and Marc was too. Though Marc, now if I do the juxtaposition, it doesn't work quite so well. Marc was there, but anyway. But so oh yeah, Robbie's got. Is that a pair too? Yes, and my pair are not here at the moment. But anyway, that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching. I think what I was going to do is try and play out with a little bit of the Arturia piece that we shot, just because it was. You'll see what I mean about the energy. So I'll play a little bit of that, and then we'll fade to black, and that'll be that. So thanks everyone. That's it for this week.